Hey, what's up, everyone? It's the Lemesis, your nemesis, but you can call me Lem. Welcome to Just Another Cheesehead podcast. Been a while, and I did that on purpose because I just wanted to show how confident I was in my forecast of how this team was going to perform, what I expected from the very beginning. So now there really can't be any excuses. We've seen two back-to-back weeks of the Green Bay Packers losing in a interesting fashion that continually furthers the narrative I've been trying to share with you guys. Again, I'm trying to get you guys to understand that I have been enlightened. I've been enlightened because I no longer have a great Hall of Fame quarterback behind center to distract me from reality. I'm no longer distracted. I've been unplugged. I understand that there is a matrix and that I've been living in it for so long, for over 30 years, watching Favre, watching Aaron Rodgers, and watching this organization not take advantage of every single opportunity that we had with such great QBs behind center. Now, I will say this. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, they spoiled everyone, winning 6 championships over a 20-year span. But and knowing that Aaron Rodgers was so much better than Tom Brady, and while he only has one Super Bowl appearance, that I'm sure that feeds into it. So I can be very, very honest. And that's what we do here at Just Another Cheesehead podcast. But again, I mean, what more can I say besides attacking this new narrative that has come out today that everyone thinks that we should fire Joe Barry. And I'm here to say to you, Joe Barry is not the problem. He is not the problem. And I've been saying this for a very long time. I'm not saying Joe Barry isn't part of the problem, but Joe Barry is not the problem. You guys, you have to look at this holistically, Packer fans. Listen, my fellow cheeseheads, I'm here to educate you and inform you so that we make educated, logical decisions. And unfortunately, you really don't have any argument now. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I don't know how you can say I was wrong when I continually come out on top every single week. A broken clock is right twice a day, so you get a couple games, but that does not refute anything that I've been saying since the beginning of the season. So I still don't believe in Jordan Love. I don't believe in Matt LaFleur, and I want him gone. And I also want Brian Gutekunst gone at GM as our GM. So I just want to be very clear. I think it starts from the top down. I've seen, again, like I've said before, the writing's on the wall that when you start to see this power struggle and this fight with your general manager and your top NFL QB and the GM trying to sabotage the team from within, you're clearly seeing egos at each other, right? And it's silly to me because you have a GM who potentially could have a much longer career and just keep his mouth shut, take advantage, business as usual, do your job, allow Aaron Rodgers to have his limited stint at the QB position. You don't play QB forever, and you don't want to be the guy who kicks out a Hall of Fame quarterback and just look like a fool. And that's exactly what we look like right now. And then, to point fingers and to be immature, I knew something was coming up. Now, I will say this, Aaron Rodgers has not helped himself. He keeps trying to grab the limelight. I wish he was the old Aaron where he was just quiet, reserved, kept to himself. But to me, he has his right to do that because, I mean, his career in the NFL is very short-lived. I don't believe he wants to even get into commentating or anything like that. So, I mean, he has his 15 minutes of fame. Take advantage of it. Make as much money as you can. And then, trust me, we won't be hearing from him for a long time once he chooses to pack it up. He'll be gone. So, enjoy it while you still can. But let's get to the Green Bay Packers and what happened the last 2 weeks. And I'll pull this up live while we're on this podcast because I do think it's interesting. So, I did my last podcast I did was right after the Green Bay Packers beat the Chiefs. And I still stated, like I state today, that I don't believe in the Green Bay Packers. And I don't believe in Jordan Love. And I want this team to be dismantled. I want our head coach gone and the GM gone. And there was a lot of pushback. People thought I was stupid. But then we followed up with 2 big L's, proving exactly my point. And I want to point out some flaws in people's reasonings. The Packer fans who believe Joe Barry should be gone. It's quite foolish when you really think about it. And I'm gonna jump to it really quick. Is how many points a game do you think our defense is giving up? Points per game. You have to look at the stats and you have to look at the details before you start talking that smack. And that's one of the advantages I get now, no longer being blinded, no longer being distracted from reality, is how bad is this Green Bay defense? Now, I will say this, the Green Bay defense has never been good for like the last 5 years. Let's be real. They have not. And that's one of the main reasons why we only have 5 or 6 NFC Championship games with only 1 Super Bowl appearance with Aaron Rodgers behind center. So I'm not trying to act as if our defense has been world beaters. I've been very critical of our defense. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to give Jordan Love the benefit of the doubt of he's not really the problem. The problem's really the defense. No. What we're about to point out are the facts that the defense is actually not the problem here. Even though they had an awful game this Sunday, you'll see very quickly that the defense has done enough all season for Jordan Love to produce, and the offense with Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love just haven't kept their end of the bargain. So it's just funny how we quickly shift gears. So let's look at NFL teams' points per game. So we got the team opponent points per game, and we have NFL team points per game. How many points per game do you think the Green Bay Packers defense allows their opponents on average? We allow our opponents on average 21.5. It was interesting. I did this yesterday, and I actually just counted up all the points, and I divided it by the amount of games we played, which is 14, and I came to that exact same number. Now, look at the difference between rank 17 and rank 9. Rank 17 and rank 9 is 1.5. So Green Bay's defense is 1.5 points away from the 9th best defense or scoring defense in the NFL. Yeah, you heard that. They're just giving up 1.5 more points than the 9th ranked defense, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders in this ranking. Now, here's the part that I think is so hilarious. How many points do you think per game our offense is averaging? Well, let's look at it. The Green Bay Packers are averaging 21.4 points per game. Yes, you heard it. We are averaging less points per game as an offense than our defense is allowing per game. And to be 1.5 points away, we're still right around the 12th or 13th best offense in the league from that spot. So, in my humble opinion, I think it's reasonable to expect in today's 2023 NFL pass-happy league to have our offense average at least 24-plus points per game. At the least. I mean, that's what I believe. I know some others may disagree, but for you to be averaging less than 21 or 22 points per game in the NFL is astounding. You're not going to win many games. And as you can see, the teams that are not winning at least or scoring at least 24 points per game are what? Teams that are either at 500 or below, right? We have the Los Angeles Rams, roughly right around 500. Jacksonville struggling, roughly right around 500. Kansas City Chiefs are the only team that have a winning record that I see so far. Cleveland, they took a dip. Their defense is fantastic, but they're sitting right at 22.1. So as you can see, Indianapolis, the Rams, Jacksonville, Cleveland, the only anomaly, truly. New Orleans, Cincinnati, Houston, Denver, Chargers, Seattle, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Minnesota. Again, you can't score more than 24 points a game. You got a losing record, or you're sitting around at 500, maybe a game above or two. So this proves my point again that we're so quick to jump the gun, and this is dangerous as Packer fans. You guys need to understand how dangerous this reasoning is. This is why we turned on Aaron Rodgers so quickly, because we always say in the NFL, it's what have you done for me lately? And maybe I'm just too empathetic, I'm too considerate compared to the rest of the fans that are out there, but I don't forget what Brett Favre did for us. I don't forget what Aaron Rodgers did for us for so many years. Both of those men with those great teams, those talents, with the Reggie Whites and the Clay Matthews, with the Donald Drivers. I don't forget the Jermichael Finleys, even though I don't really like them that much. Even Greg Jennings. Today's a great day to be great. Oh, yeah, I purchased. I had the T-shirts to prove it. I don't forget those guys. But I'm not going to sit here and make an erroneous claim without actually looking at the facts of the details, of looking at the facts and the details of the situation. And this is what I find hilarious. So the problem is not Joe Barry, because one, if we're really willing to fire Joe Barry so easily, why don't you fire the guy who hired Joe Barry? Right? That's Matt LaFleur. And then after you fire the guy who hired Joe Barry, how about you fire the guy who hired Matt LaFleur, who hired Joe Barry? So to me, this is where we're seeing the issue. There's a flaw in the reasoning of the front office of the Green Bay Packers. I've been saying this from the very beginning. I think what Green Bay's trying to do let's put it out on paper. I think you see the GM and Aaron Rodgers go at it because there was a philosophical disagreement. I think that as soon as Brian Gutekunst got the GM position, he felt like he could build a team on the cheap to stay relevant. I don't believe Brian Gutekunst was trying to win a championship. I don't care what he says. You guys have to look at the logic. We were sitting there at a position where all we needed was another great wide receiver across from Davante Adams, and that would have put us over the top. Because the moment you get another dynamic receiver to be opposing to Davante Adams, now defenses have a problem because you can't double team both guys. And if you do double team both guys, somebody's going to be wide open right down the field somewhere. We didn't do that. So what did he do? He loaded up on defense, and he didn't get the picks right. So our defense wasn't really top tier. It was not top notch. I don't care about the 1 year we were ranked in the top 10. We were irrelevant. We weren't playing teams that had offensive power. We played a lot of bad, garbage teams that we kept from scoring. So that's not really saying much. Again, what I've learned with football when I watch football over the many years is a lot of teams look overinflated. They look like they're better than they actually are. And when there's so many variables that are not taken into consideration to paint the big picture. That's why you see teams like the Dallas Cowboys with a winning record, but then when they play the teams like the Buffalo Bills, they just get destroyed, and Dak Prescott has like less than 150 yards passing and a pick. So that's what happens. The NFL as a whole, the majority of the teams in the NFL are just not that good. That like if you're ranked in the top 15, from 15 to 10, you're okay to decent, right? From 15 and lower, you're terrible. But you're better than the average person or college football player who played football, right? So it's not saying much. It's just this is the dynamics of human beings and athletes that, we can only work with what we have. But I think that's the biggest thing. So to me, the best thing to do is to compare other great players to great players and years of teams against other years of teams to get the bigger picture. One, because it gives you a grade of like, how good is the NFL we're watching today? And the answer is not that good. And then when you look at position to position, Then you can look at, okay, who are like average to great players who played these positions, and are these guys who are currently in the NFL today even on that same playing field? And I think you see stuff like that when you look at like the defensive opponent's points per game, et cetera, right? So like right now, the Baltimore Ravens, their defense look pretty good. They're averaging roughly 16.1 points per game on their opposing defenses. Again, I haven't done a deep dive into them to see the opponents they've played against. But when you start to get into this territory, you start to get really close to like all-time great defenses. When you're only giving up 15, 16 points, maybe we can go to 17, but when you start to get into that realm and you're averaging that, that's pretty darn good. But then it also comes down to who have you been playing. So then that's one of the reasons why I would say, yeah, maybe these stats are a little overinflated, because if we compare the Baltimore Ravens of 2023 with previous years of other great defenses, were they doing this? Like when you compare them to the Legion of Boom, the Legion of Boom kept the number one scoring offense in the Super Bowl from scoring more than 8 points. And then you get to see an historically great offense against an historically great defense. And in the end, that historically great defense overtook that historically great offense. So that's how you have to view these things. And I also want to go over, let's just go over the games really quickly. I wanted to dive into the details really quickly just so I can shut some people's mouths up pretty quickly, because I just think the way we think about things is so stupid. And it takes us so long to get to these conclusions that I think are pretty obvious. And when I say stupid, or if I call you an idiot, whatever it may be, I'm insulting myself, because I thought just as dumb as you guys did. I was there, right there with you when we went into San Francisco thinking that we could beat the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick multiple times and Jimmy Garoppolo, and when Raheem Mostert ran us all over the field. I mean, you remember them fools get like over 300 yards on the ground, and they didn't even allow Jimmy G to throw the ball more than like 8 times the whole game. So, when you have such greatness on your side and he covers up so many sins, it does cloud your mind. And then, of course, when he's that victor, right, and he doesn't act the way you want him to act, he doesn't represent the standard Midwest person like Aaron Rodgers hasn't, right? Because how many people in the Midwest have access to drugs like ayahuasca? How many the guys from California? He's just different. So when he's different from you and he's playing on your team and he's from California, and then, the whole COVID situation, it's easy to get mad at him and say, he's the problem. You're a diva. Get out of here. But again, I think what we're not realizing is that the rest of the NFL has been struggling for decades. And very quickly, we're complaining about Rodgers, pointing the finger at him. But then whenever Aaron Rodgers is gone, which he is, and another year removed, you can't say much about the guy. And then when he's out of the league, you got nothing in your pants that you can pull out of your pocket and say, hey, I'm going to complain about this. When you have Jordan Love, what are you going to do? You know what the progression is going to be. We're going to Joe Barry. Once we get Joe Barry gone, then we're going to still suck. Then what are we going to do? We're going to go to Matt LaFleur. And then shortly after Matt LaFleur, we're going to go to Brian Gutekunst. What if you would have been listening to Just Another Cheesehead podcast several months back? I could have given you this answer from the very beginning, because I saw the writing on the wall. This is what I've been trying to tell you. So after we play the Chiefs and we beat them, we go out and we struggle in New York against the Giants. Like the Giants, the 5-8 Giants beat us. We got beat by Tommy DeVito. He only threw 158 yards with 1 touchdown. Jordan Love had 218 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick. He should have had 2 picks, throwing errant passes. And you guys love this guy because he's Jordan Love. I love Jordan Love, right? And look what happened. We couldn't really muster up anything. And the only reason why we were able to even keep this game close was because the special teams and the special teams of both teams were so erratic. We had like a punt that got fumbled by by the New York Giants, and we picked up the ball in like in our red zone area. Like, that was insane. This is what I mean by Green Bay's only good in situations. So Jordan Love, he will look good and pad his stats because if the team gets some type of turnover, that's a fluky turnover. Like, you can't expect a fumble on a special teams play consistently. So when you get stuff like that happening in the game, and then that puts Jordan Love at the 5-yard line, and then he could just throw a touchdown pass, that's what I mean by situational. That's what you're seeing with Jordan Love. Even in the game last week, or this Sunday against the Bucs, it's 4th and 2. Jordan Love misses our wide receiver wide left, throwing the ball to who knows who. But then what happened? The Bucs get the ball, and then they fumble from our defense, forcing a fumble. Then Jordan Love gets another chance in the red zone to score a touchdown. You see what I'm saying? If those events don't occur, then how does Jordan Love's numbers really look? So that's the reason why I'm so critical of him, because this is the time you're supposed to be critical of him. You need to understand the logic here. He hasn't played for 5, 6, 7 years, or even 2 or 3 years, showing consistent greatness. He's out there showing you situational greatness. And when he's showing you situational greatness, you should be a heavy critiquer of it, because you don't want to be fooled if you're in management and pay this kid too early because he took advantage of situations that were in his favor. What you want is, so think about it. What happened with Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins, the Washington Redskins at the time, which are now the Commanders, they didn't believe in Kirk Cousins. So we went out there year after year. I think it was like 3 years. They kept putting the franchise tag on him. And year after year after year, he had to go out there and prove to them that he was that guy. After 2 to 3 years of him proving himself and getting the franchise tag, he proved to the league that he was legitimate and that you like that was not just situational. So that's what I'm communicating to you guys. And I don't even think Kirk Cousins is that guy who deserves that kind of contract, in my opinion, to play for my team, because a guy like a Kirk Cousins is along the same lines as like a Dak Prescott, which Dak Prescott's having a great year. But in order for you to win with a guy like that, you need to have such an outstanding team around them to help them to avoiding making the big mistake. No, I don't want a team like that. I want a quarterback that I can put the ball in his hand and he'll go win the game. And I want a good to great defense behind him, because then we're not going to just win one Super Bowl. Luckily, when the stars align, we're going to win multiple Super Bowls. But you could say, oh, well, we had that with Aaron Rodgers, but the problem was we didn't. We had a good to great defense ranked number 1. And then what happened? We dismantled the defense. We got rid of everyone. Nick Collins got hurt. All types of things happened. And then we never got back to that glory. So the thing that I find was an issue is that we never put that defense around Aaron. And I think the reason why Aaron Rodgers never took any less money was because Green Bay showed that they weren't willing to bring talent outside. I mean, you can't blame Aaron for that when you look at how they've treated free agencies throughout the year. Think about the big free agents that we've had over the many years. You go all the way back to Reggie White. Then who's the next one? Charles Woodson. Then who's the next one? Julius Peppers. Like, we didn't get a bunch of great defensive free agents. You could talk about Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, but we let Zadarius Smith go. He couldn't stay healthy. These guys weren't on that level. You can't say Zadarius was pretty good, but he couldn't stay healthy. But you can't put Preston Smith on the same level as a Julius Peppers. I mean, all 3 of those dudes I mentioned before are going to the Hall of Fame. So what I'm saying is we had opportunities. We could have gotten beast mode. Marshawn Lynch talks about wanting to play. He wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers because he played with them in college. Imagine if we had beast mode in his prime in Green Bay. You don't think that we're making runs and potentially winning Super Bowls? I mean, the Seattle Seahawks beat us with beast mode. If they don't have beast mode, what do you think happens? So again, I don't want to go too much over history, but I'm just trying to give you reasons for what I've been trying to say to you guys from the very beginning. So you see how well we performed. You see how Jordan Love performed against the Giants? Mediocre. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 218 yards. That's not what you want to see from a guy who's been in the league for 4 years and sat behind Aaron Rodgers and in his first year. When you see someone like C.J. Stroud and other QBs who've been in the league less time perform better than him. Now let's go to the next game. So then we play the Bucs, and now you can't even make the excuse that, like, hey, man, maybe Jordan Love just is really good at home, but he's terrible on the road. No, he's awful here too. Bro, he got 284 yards, and the last quarter, the defense of the Buccaneers gave off. They literally let off. And we talked about Jordan Love padding his stats for situations. Don't be fooled by this. 29 for 39, 284 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Remember, where did that first touchdown come from? Situations. This guy is averaging 20 points a game for his offense when the defense is the opposing defense or the opposing offense. Our defense is only allowing 21.5 points per game. Think about that, which means if Jordan Love just scores 24 points per game on average, we win. Now let's look at that. So if we score 24 points on average, do we win? So we played against the Bears. If we scored 24 points, we win that game. Against the Falcons, we lose because we lose by 1 point. Against the Saints, 24 points, we win. We still lose against the Lions, but then here's where it gets interesting. We scored 24 points against the Raiders, we win. If we score 24 points against the Broncos, we win. If we score 24 against the Rams, we already won. If we score 24 points against the Vikings, the game's tied. We may win that. If we score 24 points against the Steelers, that's 19-23. We win that game. 24 points against the Chargers, we still win that game. We still win against the Chiefs. If we score 24 points against the Lions, guess what? We still win that game. If we score 24 freaking points against the New York Giants, the game's tied. Now, you see my point? 24 points a game is not unusual for a franchise quarterback to be averaging in this offense. That doesn't mean that every game he's going to score and get over 24 points. It's on average. So we should be scoring more than 24 points per game. And against teams like the Giants and against teams like the Bucs, that should have been the case. So my point is, if you go back through the rest of the season and you say, all right, what's Green Bay's record? What are we, 6-8? So how many games will we actually win if we had scored 24 points? This would have been a W. This would have been a W. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't know if this is a W, but I'm going to call it a W just because it's tied. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This would have been a loss. 12. That's 12 games, potentially 10 games. If you give the ties to the opponent, we have 10 games to 12 games where we're winning. Now, are we calling for Joe Barry's job when that happens? If our defense goes out there and performs exactly the way they always performed with Joe Barry and what everyone wants to consider a mediocre defense, which I'm not arguing that, are we really calling for Joe Barry's job at that point? No, of course not. So that's the reason why I'm saying, guys, let's stop overreacting. Let's stop focusing on things that don't matter. When we look at what actually matters, Green Bay's offense is not scoring enough points per game. 21.4 points puts you in the bottom half or the less than average of the NFL. 21.4 is 19th. When 15th is 21.9. And again, there's not that big of a difference between 21.9 and 21.4, but it matters. It really, really does matter. So then when you look at our defense, again, for our defense to be as poor as it is this season, to literally be 1.5, they give up 1.5 points more than the 9th ranked defenses in the NFL when it comes to scoring. Come on, guys. Use your brain here. Let's not be stupid. Okay? Now, let's go a little dive deeper into Jordan Love a little more. And this is what I'm trying to say to you guys that, like, you know, it's like, it just makes me laugh so hard, right? Let's look at the top, and I got PFF. I've been using it, looking at the stats. It's the first time I'm going to break it out so you guys can see it. So the PFF grades, I don't think we should look total. So, like, I'm not saying we should rely 100% on this, but I'm going to use all the resources that I possibly can. Because there are times that I don't agree with PFF and their grades. But in this case, not because it just proves my point, it just paints the picture that I think we need to really look at, right? When you look at the overall offensive grade, OFF is PFF grade for offense. This is what you're seeing with our offenses, the PFF grade. Josh Allen's at the top, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Brock, Lamar, Kurt, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud, Jake Browning off the bench, keeping the Bengals alive. Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, and at 18th, Jordan Love. Still a little bit above Baker Mayfield, who just cooked us in Lambeau Field. So here's what I'm getting at right now. To me, this is a joke. Why in the world do you think that we should be bringing in a QB like Jordan Love, who's ranked 18th out of a total of, it looks like 40 QBs who has played this season, because this is like the year of the backups, because all the starters, most of the starters this league have been injured, have been hurt. He's got a 77.1 rating. If we look at his passer rating, he's around the same number. So he was 18th before, so he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17th. So he moves up one more. He's the 17th rate QB when it comes to his rating, his passer rating, or technically his grade for pass in the NFL. So we got a guy who's not even, he's right around average. So my point is, do you want to pay an average QB top dollar? Do you want to play an average guy who's ranked 18th, 19th, 17th top dollar? Is that the guy you really want to replace Aaron Rodgers? So how in the world do you think, let's be real, are we going to get Robert Saleh as our defensive coordinator? You know, I was talking to a buddy about it, and he said, let's get Bill Belichick as our head coach. And then, what did he say? I said Eric Bieniemy. I said, let's bring Eric Bieniemy as our head coach and Robert Saleh as our defensive coordinator. And I was like, yo, that would be fantastic. That would be it. Because that's what it is. Green Bay just lacks the integrity, the mental fortitude, the toughness. The guys behind, every time I see Matt LaFleur get on a press conference and he's talking after a loss, he borderline looks like he was crying in the back. He's all teary-eyed and wet behind the ear, looking like, oh, my God, I was trying to tell the guys. I was trying to tell them to work hard. He just looks so soft. And it's like, yeah, that's probably why we're trash, because the head coach reflects how soft the team is. And that's why we haven't had a great defense like that in many years. So, this is what I'm saying, guys. You want a guy who is struggling to stay in the top 20? I mean, look at the type of players he's around, right? Just look at this. Jake Browning is playing better than Jordan Love. CJ Stroud, a rookie's playing better than Jordan Love. Jared Goff is playing better than Jordan Love. And let's not even, like, Kirk Cousins. Like, y'all cats, I told you about Kirk Cousins. We went through the story earlier, but let's not act like everybody's clamoring for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is just one of those dudes who's just like, he plays okay, but he will lose the game for you. He needs, Kirk Cousins is along the Trent Dilfer lines. He's going to play the game. He's not going to go out there and win the game for you consistently. Come on. So that's what I'm saying. We had Brett Favre. We had Aaron Rodgers. Our standards need to be higher than that. And then just look at overall our defense. This was to go back to what I was saying before. Like, if we just look at our defensive grade, the Green Bay Packers are not the worst team in the NFL. We're sharing the 20th defensive spot just behind the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Our overall defense, we get a rating of 69.5 out of 100. And there's only two teams that have a 90 rating, Miami and the 49ers. And I just don't think Miami, I don't really believe in Miami, but we don't need to go into that. But that's my point. Like, should we get rid of Joe Barry? Yeah, but should it just kind of be like a whole axing of the entire coaching staff? Then yeah, that's when we're in agreement. But to just get rid of Joe Barry and act like Matt LaFleur isn't the problem, and that the fact that, Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur have been drafting these bums who haven't really been producing, and then not giving our veteran team we had in there before all the tools they needed to win, when it's about what have you done for me lately in the NFL? Come on. That's the reality. So this is the point that I'm trying to get at with you guys. I hope you understand. Let's look at the remaining schedule that the Green Bay Packers have. I think it's pretty much over. Really, do you even want to make the playoffs now? Like, think about it. It seemed like an interesting, situation when you could go, oh man, we could make the playoffs if we could beat everybody in front of us, right? The Giants, the Bucks, the Carolina Panthers, Minnesota, and Chicago all had losing records. And we were sitting there like, yo, we could beat all these fools. And very quickly, that turned upside down quickly, didn't it? Because like you guys know, man, teams will get up for opponents, right? Kansas City was struggling right now, and that's the reason why they spiraled out of control. Do you really think the way Kansas City played and those non-calls from the pass interference passes, do you really think Kansas City in a typical Sunday would lose that game? Of course not. Same thing when we played the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert had multiple dudes drop wide open passes. So our little win streak we had of the Chargers, Detroit, and Kansas City, like Detroit came off of a game the week before, or a few days before, where they had this like heart attack type game against the Bears, coming back in the final moments. So again, and to me, this proves my point when you see us lose against teams like the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're not legit. You can't convince me of that. So any given Sunday, anything could happen, and that's what you saw. And I'm not going to lie to you right now. I'm not going to be surprised if we get beat by the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you. I will not be surprised if we come to Carolina and we just get stomped on December 24th by the Carolina Panthers. I think there's a good possibility. I really do think at this point, again, originally I put the Green Bay Packers winning no more than 7 games this season. Right now we're 6-8. Out of all the 3 games left, the game that we should win should be next week. If I had to put my life on the line, right, I would still pick Green Bay to win that game. But I won't be surprised if we lose that game. We could easily lose against Minnesota, and we can easily lose against the Chicago Bears. The Bears have been improving. I mean, they just had a heart attack game where they almost won just Sunday. So the Bears have turned things around. I mean, they barely lost against the Bengals, 27-24. They had that awful game against the Raiders where it was just 3-0. But let's not act like they haven't contended. I mean, they're playing the Broncos, barely lost 21-20. I mean, come on, guys. This team is not that bad. So, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings. I need to go back to the Bears. Hold on. I was thinking about the what was the game? I think it was against Minnesota where they had that. Let me see. Was it Minnesota? There was like an awful scoring game. Yeah, there was 12-10. That's what I was thinking about. But yeah, look at that. They played they beat the Vikings, they beat the Lions. They barely lost to the Browns with Joe Flacco coming back. There's a good chance the Bears might beat us at the end of the season. And like I always said, the Bears suck. But this seems like to be the kind of season that, in my opinion, it's like the Green Bay Packers won games they had no business winning, and they lost games they had no business losing. Right? We shouldn't have lost against Atlanta. I picked that. We shouldn't have beaten the New Orleans Saints. Like that, that was ridiculous. Detroit should have beat us. I do think we should have beat the Vegas Raiders, but we lost. I do think we should have beat the Denver Broncos, but we lost. I do think the Minnesota Vikings should have beat us. That makes sense. We beat the Los Angeles Chargers. That made no sense. But it makes sense when you look at the fact that Matthew Stafford was hurt. Pittsburgh Steelers beat us. And then, sorry, that was the Rams, not Chargers. Then we shouldn't have beat the Los Angeles Chargers. But dudes are dropping passes. We shouldn't have beat the Detroit Lions again. But they had that heartbreak W the week before on a short week, and Detroit came out flat and showed who they are. Then the Kansas City Chiefs just throw up a stinker. You got Patrick Mahomes looking like a bum there, and they were a shell of themselves. But then we shouldn't have lost to the Giants. We shouldn't have lost to Tampa Bay, and we just throw out two stinkers. And what it looks like to me is we shouldn't lose against the Carolina Panthers, but we probably will lose. We should get beat by Minnesota. That's probably a W. And then we shouldn't lose to Chicago, so that looks like an L. So if I keep with my original prediction, I think we only win 7 games still. I'm still looking pretty spot on, but it looks like it's going to be an L, a W, and an L. We're going to end losing to the Panthers, winning against Minnesota, and losing against Chicago. So that's going to be my, late season change-up prediction, just because how Green Bay has played all year. Winning games we shouldn't have won, and losing games we shouldn't have lost. So, it's been a terrible year, and I think playoffs should just completely be out of question. We had playoff chances right in front of us, and if Jordan Love was going to be that guy to take us to the next level, he could have easily done that. Green Bay, remember, had the easiest schedule in the NFL. The easiest. And we still lost back-to-back games. So, that's atrocious. So, hey, as always, I'm the Lemesis, your nemesis, but you can call me Lem. Thanks for listening to Just Another Cheesehead podcast. Remember, you heard it here first. Joe Barry is not the problem. We need to get rid of Matt LaFleur. We need to get rid of Brian Gutekunst. We need to clean house. We need to get someone in there who's not afraid to dive into free agency and to get some players who are veterans on our team. Green Bay is in Wisconsin. If you've ever been to Green Bay, Wisconsin, there's really nothing there besides cheese and the Green Bay Packers and some amazing fans. But other than that, there's nothing there. So when you're living in 2023, what other reason does a great player have to try to come to Green Bay when you don't have great talent at at QB or any other position to try to win? I mean, you can't even get J.J. Watt to come to Green Bay, and the dude's from Green Bay, Wisconsin. So that's not happening. So we need to make a change, and unfortunately, as fans, we're the ones who suffer until, we see a major change that I've been trying to predict for quite some time. So thanks for listening to Just Another Cheesehead podcast. As always, if you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, you should get to know him. It'll be the best decision you ever make in your life. Just call out to him, ask him to come into your life, and it'll be the best decision you ever make. Peace, love, and hap. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.